See, she's a middle schooler, I call her.
I would like to ask what you intend to do to make sure that our generation doesn't end up paying for a war that started before we could even develop it.
Well, it's a great question. That's a powerful question. Look, the first thing we have to do is end it. The first thing you do if you find yourself in a hole is to do what? Stop digging. And we have gotten in a hole. Just to give you a scope, a sense of the scope of what's happened here. It wasn't just that George Bush started a war that should have never been authorized and should have never been waged, which, by the way, my two remaining opponents both authorized. I want to be clear about that. So when you're asking yourself who should answer that 3 o'clock, yourself that question, why you would select the two folks who moved forward on a war that even those who are proponents of it still can't explain how it's made us safer. Still can't explain it. I mean, you ask John McCain, how has this made us safer? You get, I mean, he will argue about how the surge has been the right thing to do. But that's not the question. The question is, why did we go in there in the first place? And you still can't get a good answer to that question in terms of how that helped our strategic position. In fact, it's made Iran stronger. They're the biggest strategic beneficiary of these things. But here's the point. We have added $4 trillion worth of national debt since George Bush took office. Up until then, we had about $5 trillion worth of national debt. So imagine the first 42 presidents, $5 trillion. Number 43, $4 trillion. He almost doubled it just by his lonesome. And part of the reason is because we fought a war. And it wasn't just the war, we also then cut taxes for the rich at the same time as we fought a war. And John McCain, at the time, I give him credit, he said, this is irresponsible. We should not vote for tax cuts for the wealthy at a time of war. Never been done before. That's what he said. And now suddenly he's running for president as the Republican nominee, and what does he want to do? He wants to extend those same tax cuts that he said were irresponsible. I'm just telling the truth. I admire John McCain's service to our country, but the wheels on the Straight Talk Express came off. We've got to end the war. Now, people say, well, you can't end it precipitously. I'm not talking about precipitous drawdowns. I'm talking about 1 to 2 brigades per month. At that pace, it'll take about 16 months to get all our combat troops out. Yeah. And I won't even take office until January of 2009. So we're talking about potentially having all our troops out 2 years from now. This war has already gone on longer than World War I, World War II, and the Civil War. If we can't get this thing resolved in 2 more years, then we may be there 20 years, 30 years. John McCain says 100 years. And we're spending $10 billion a month at a time when we have desperate needs here at home. And we're borrowing from the Chinese on a credit card made out in the name of our children and our grandchildren, piling up mountains of debt. That's not good national security policy. So we're gonna end this war. We're gonna roll back the Bush tax cuts on the top 1%. They don't need those tax breaks. They were doing fine before the Bush tax cuts. They'll do fine afterwards. We've got to institute what's called pay-as-you-go budgeting. It's a very simple principle. If you want to start a new program, you got to pay for it. Either by cutting an old program or finding new revenue sources. And every proposal that I have made, I have paid for. I have shown how I will pay for it by closing corporate tax loopholes, closing tax havens, rolling back the Bush tax cut, ending the war in Iraq, creating a cap and trade system for carbon emissions. We are generating billions of dollars that can go back into our clean energy investments. I pay for everything that I propose. And finally, we should actually look to see, is there some waste in government? There is waste. I worked with a Republican to set up something called Google for Government. It's a very simple idea. It's a searchable database that lists every dollar of federal spending on the internet, so you can find out if there's a bridge to nowhere being built, who sponsored it, so you can embarrass them about doing it. If there's a no-bid contract to Harrisburg, we're going to list that and make sure that those kinds of poor spending practices come to an end. Remember what I said, I'm tight with the dollar. I'm tight with a nickel. So we're going to try to make sure that you are not loaded down with debt. All right, this young man's been waving, and he gets the last